Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. And this is the MLB DFS Core Pick video for today. It is March 31st, so the last day of March. We'll be moving into April very soon, obviously, but obviously happy to be back with the second day of baseball. The first day for terms of core picks, not the greatest there. We'll be talking a little bit of that recap. We'll be talking a little bit of the kind of the weather in play for today for these games, and then going over to FanDuel for my core picks for today. Obviously, if you've followed my NBA videos before, if you're brand new, didn't check out yesterday's video, do just the FanDuel side for baseball. It's just a little bit easier to do there, easier to control and stuff like that with only one pitcher versus two pitcher. If you guys do have any specific DraftKings questions for MLB, I can take a look at that after the video is over and kind of get back with you on that as well. But a lot of what I'm saying, some of these hitters and stuff, it still kind of applies to both sites, even though the pricing may vary from site to site as well. But with that being said, we're going to get into a quick little recap of yesterday's picks. So at the pitcher position, went with Hunter Green. He was $9,100. Only got 25 points yesterday, so he was a miss. Only ended up pitching 3 innings. He gave up 3 earned runs. He had a couple of walks, gave up like 5 hits, and struck out 8. Obviously, like a little bit better results there, especially going against the Pittsburgh Pirates, but it's still a pretty popular play. It wasn't like the end of the world. Like you still could have had a cashing lineup with him as your pitcher, but just not the performance that we were really looking for out of him yesterday. Then we moved down to second baseman Ozzie Albies. He had very good history versus Patrick Corbin yesterday. $3,500. He got 9.5 points, so not a bad point total by any means. Obviously, I believe he's the second most expensive second baseman on yesterday's slate. I did give him a push just because there were so many other good second base options that amounted to stuff yesterday. So, he was a little bit further down the totem pole at second base, but definitely not a bad play by any means. Then at shortstop, we had Willie Adames at $3,300. He only got 6 points yesterday. I think he had 2 walks. That might have been Jose Miranda. I might be mixing those two up, but both ended up with 6 points. So to give both them a push, not anybody that really hurt your lineup, but not anybody that really helped it at the same time. Then last but not least, we had Nick Gordon, who went 0 for 2 yesterday. Pretty good history versus Zach Greinke going into the day. Just kind of our cheaper option at $2,400. Unfortunately, he got pinch hit for later on in the game by Kyle Farmer. So that kind of sucked there. So he only had the 2 lone at bats where he didn't get a single hit. So not the greatest day overall, but it's the first day of the season. Obviously, we're looking at a lot of history versus hitter versus pitcher matchups. We're looking at a little bit of spring training results there and everything else like that. As the season moves along, we'll have a little bit more data to go off of, especially with our hitter versus pitcher matchups, and then kind of recent performances by our hitter as well, which are kind of the 2 biggest factors that I do factor in when I'm going through my core picks and everything else like that. If you guys didn't check out yesterday over on Patreon, patreon.com/Coach Craig Sports, I do put up some MLB DFS notes there on the daily. So I go through each pitcher, break them down, whether they're in play, kind of a risky play, if they have good history versus the hitters they're going against, if they are a pitcher I would avoid, if they're a pitcher that has really limited upside just because they don't strike out a lot of batters or anything else like that. But with that being said, that was kind of a recap for yesterday's picks. Like I said, not the greatest day in the world, but it is day 1. So definitely lots of time to bounce back throughout the season. In terms of like the weather for today's game, sometimes I'll bring up RotoWire for this. Sometimes I won't. At this point in time, we have 5 games today, and there is no weather spots of concern. I believe 3 of the games are in domes, and then 2 other don't show any precipitation in the near future. So definitely should be a good, healthy slate for weather-wise, at least. So I do see Dan over here in the chat. He said, yo, great stuff, coach. So definitely do appreciate you checking it out, Dan. Like I said earlier on, too, if anybody does have any specific questions regarding the slate, feel free to drop them in the comments, whether you're listening live or if you're listening on replay. Be sure to leave them down there, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. But we're going to get moved over to the core picks for today. Obviously, try to keep these videos, kind of short and sweet at this point in time, especially with just playing on the one site. But for today on FanDuel for the core picks, I'm not sure why that was so hard to get out, but at the pitcher position, I think there's a couple different options here we can look at. My cheat sheet's up over at YouTube, my cheat sheet is up on YouTube. It's up on Twitter. It's up on Facebook. I don't believe it's up on Patreon, but you got 3 other spots to look for. If you guys want that up on Patreon, I can throw that up there as well. But the cheat sheet is completely free. Some of the other notes just behind a little bit of a paywall on Patreon, which is a very, very small monthly donation. But position today, I think you can go with Christian Javier, who is the most expensive pitcher on the slate, $10,100. Decent matchup against the White Sox. White Sox are a team that will strike out a decent amount. Christian Javier is a pretty good strikeout pitcher. Personally, I went with Robbie Ray here at $9,900. He pitched against Cleveland twice last year. He had 37 and 52 points in his 2 starts versus them. He had a very, very strong spring training where he was not walking as many batters, which has kind of been his downfall throughout his career. And you have to remember, this is a guy that won the Cy Young Award 2 seasons ago. He's looking like he's back in that form. So do definitely like his upside once again today. Not a lot of history against Cleveland, but what he's faced in them, been pretty good there outside of like a Rosario is like 5 for 10 versus him, but no real damage there. There's not too much power threats in that Cleveland lineup as well. So do like the upside that Robbie Ray does offer. Obviously, he's a high strikeout guy as well. And then if you were looking at like the hot or lower end option at pitcher, David Peterson definitely makes some sense for the Mets at $8,300, which is a very, very reasonable price. If you want to go down a little bit further, Nick Martinez is in play at $7,600 too, but he's got a little bit of hit or miss history versus the Rockies. But the start that he did make last year versus them and in San Diego was actually pretty good. So there is that as well. But when we're getting down to when we're getting down to the hitters, obviously there's 4 of them once again. So if you guys weren't with me yesterday, there's 5 core picks every single day. There's 1 pitcher, there's 4 hitters. I try to make it not like more than 2 outfielders. I try to make it not like 2 first basemen because you're kind of clogging up the utility spot. I want to give you guys a little bit of flexibility there as well. But the first guy I'm starting off with is just kind of our cheap play today. It is Miguel Rojas for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Most likely playing shortstop for them once again today, but you just need to make sure that he's in the lineup. He does have good history versus Merrill Kelly. He's 3 for 8 with 1 home run versus him in his career. He had a decent spring training. He had 273 with 2 home runs. So definitely a guy that I would consider in a loaded Dodgers lineup. Dodgers are a team that I am very interested in stacking today, especially since they have some good history versus Merrill Kelly. Although Merrill Kelly should be kind of ramped up, especially since he was in the World Baseball Classic as well. So that will be a very interesting matchup today, just in general. But these Los Angeles Dodgers hitters have hit him pretty well, including Miguel Rojas. You know, he's only $2,200. You can play him at shortstop. You can play him at second base. You could throw him in the utility spot if you really want to as well. But just having that pay down option. And then I like playing Mookie Betts a lot today too, which we'll get to. And kind of having the 9 and the 1 hitter together. When I'm stacking teams, I kind of like getting those, big bunches, whether it's, 2, 3, or like a 1, 2, 3 hitter, 1, 2, 3, 4 hitters. Even if you're going 9 to 1, they're still batting consecutively enough where you can get them as a decent stack as well. Obviously, you're losing probably 1 at bat for Miguel Rojas compared to some other guys, but does have some good upside as well. Then at third base, I went with Alex Bregman. He has pretty good history versus Lance Lynn. He is 6 for 15 with 2 home runs versus his career against Lance Lynn. This is a game that is down in Houston, so they're playing inside. It should be warmer weather. It's a good hitter ballpark and everything else like that. The Astros are one of the teams that do hit fastballs really well, and Lance Lynn is primarily a fastball pitcher, although he's looked pretty good this spring. I believe he's in the World Baseball Classic as well, so there is kind of that ramped up with him and Merrill Kelly. Going against some pretty good offense as well. But I do like Bregman. The only concern with him is he didn't hit a home run in spring training at all in like 15 games. He had 279 still. So there is some upside there. Maybe it's a little bit capped, but still like the upside that he's had in the past versus Lance Lynn. And then we get down to Mookie Betts, who is $3,900. It's a good price tag. He's obviously one of the better players in all of baseball. He's 7 for 23 with 3 home runs versus Merrill Kelly in his career. So obviously, when we're thinking Mookie Betts, he's already a good player. We know the type of upside that he can have on any given day. He's got very good history versus Merrill Kelly, so this is a shot I'm willing to take. And the Dodgers are one of those teams that I'm just interested in stacking in general. So getting in their leadoff guy, nothing can go wrong, or not a bad idea by any means. I can't really say nothing can go wrong there because there's a lot that could go wrong on any given slate, any given game for baseball as well. And then last but not least, at my other outfield spot today, we're going to have Trent Grisham. He is $2,600. He has very good history in his career versus Kyle Freeland. He is 5 for 20. So he's only hitting 250 there, but he does have 3 home runs against him. He hit leadoff yesterday for the Padres. If he does that once again today, maybe that extra at bat you get out of him, squeezing him there. Lefty on lefty is not the greatest matchup for him, but their outfield depth a little bit thinner this year than it's been in past years too, especially with Fernando Tatis Jr. still being suspended for the near future. So I do like Trent Grisham today. A reasonable price tag at $2,600. He does have pretty good upside there. He had a pretty strong spring training as well. He hit 271 with 4 home runs. Going back to Mookie Betts, a little bit limited spring training for him, but 235, 3 home runs. I believe he's on the World Baseball Classic team for Team USA as well. So those numbers may have been affected just a little bit by that, but definitely do like the upside of these core 5 players that I do have here for today. Hopefully it's a little bit better than yesterday. Obviously, it's kind of rough starting off the first game of the slate. Obviously, we needed some Baltimore hitters there. That was kind of the big one. Baltimore in that Boston Red Sox game, putting up 19 runs between those two teams. Obviously, if you had some exposure to that, did pretty well, but Baltimore was one of my top stack teams for yesterday as well. So I'm just going to get over to, let me pull up this cheat sheet real quick too as well. I don't have that up at this point in time. So let me pull that up and we'll talk about the top stack teams from there as well. So I'm just getting that up real quick. It's being real slow, but so it's taking a while here either way. So I'm just going to go through them my own self personally. The cheat sheet's obviously up on YouTube if you guys want to check that out over there. But these top stacks that I do have for today, we have the San Diego Padres going against Kyle Freeland. A lot of these guys have pretty good history versus him in the past, whether it's Manny Machado, Trent Grisham. Not too much there with Juan Soto, we'll say that. But Jake Cronenworth's another one that does have pretty good history versus him as well. So there's quite a few options in that Padres lineup going against Kyle Freeland, where it could end up being pretty good once again today. The Astros going against Lance Lynn. This is kind of like the maybe one. This is be the 4th one for me. Obviously, when there's only 5 games going on, you got 10 teams in total. There's kind of like 3 stacks that you feel good about, and then kind of the 4th one is kind of the maybe. That's kind of the Astros for me today, just in general. Some of these guys have hit Lance Lynn pretty well in the past, mainly Alex Bregman and mainly Martin Maldonado, the catcher. Oddly enough, he's like hitting 500 versus him, but a little bit risky play there since he's not a guy that's been known to swing the bat too well. More of a defensive catcher than anything at that. So the Astros are an interesting team. They're a pretty good fastball hitting team. Yordan Alvarez also has good history versus Lanston. So definitely would consider him as well today. Definitely a lot of good pip options in the outfield today. But Lanston, kind of being ramped up from World Baseball Classic, pitching pretty well in the spring. Kind of we'll see what gives and what takes there. If Jose Altuve and Michael Brantley were playing today, obviously they're both on the IL at this point in time. Would have a lot more interest in this Astros lineup because both those guys have hit Lanston very, very well in the past as well. Then we get over to the Mariners. I like them today going against a rookie and Hunter Gaddis. He is going for the Cleveland Guardians. Obviously, he made 2 appearances last year. Wasn't too great in either one of them. He's a heavy fastball guy. Got decent strikeout numbers in the minors, but I think the Mariners lineup could get on him early, and that could be a potential spot there. Obviously, there's no real history to back that up at this point in time, but if you want to play some Mariners hitters today, definitely don't have a problem with that. Once again, they have a pretty good lineup overall too as well. And then last but not least, we have those Dodgers hitters who have hit Merrill Kelly very well in the past, whether it's Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith. Chris Taylor's hit him pretty well as well if he gets into the lineup today. So definitely a lot of options there. If you want to look at James Outman, who had the very good day, the rookie in the outfield. If he starts once again today, he's a very cheap play down in the outfield as well. I believe he's on my cheat sheet. So definitely a lot of good options from that Dodgers team overall, but that's kind of that give and the take match. Once again, they got very good history versus Merrill Kelly. Some of those guys have hit pretty well in the spring, but Merrill Kelly's ramped up from the World Baseball Classic as well. So we'll just have to see what gives and takes there. But with that being said, that's kind of what I have for today. Going over the recap, going over the weather and play, which really isn't a factor today. Going over my core picks for today. Obviously, we want to make sure that these guys are in the starting lineups, especially early in the season where managers kind of like to mix and match. Maybe like Miguel Rojas doesn't start today and it's a Chris Taylor. Then we just probably flip over to Chris Taylor, if I'm being completely honest, because he's got decent history versus Merrill Kelly as well. But definitely kind of a good starting point as well. Obviously, if you like any of these guys specifically, you can play them. If there's a guy that you specifically don't like, you can just swap it out for somebody else. Not the end of the world. Definitely a lot of ways that we can attack pitching today. I think there's about four different pitchers that I would go on. Christian Javier, Robbie Ray, David Peterson. If you want to get some Jesus Luzardo, you could do it as well. Kind of hit or miss history versus the Mets. And then Nick Martinez would be kind of that cheap one down too, who's got that hit or miss history versus the Rockies as well. But with that being said, that's really what I have in terms of the video for today for the MLB DFS Core Picks. I, as always, do appreciate everybody that did take the time out of their day to tune in. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you throughout the day. I'll also be trying to get all the starting lineups down in there as well, just so you guys have that information. If anything does majorly change throughout the day, I'll post an update as well. But definitely do appreciate everybody taking the time out of their day to tune in. If you're brand new to the channel, haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers. Right now, primarily focusing on DFS. We got MLB DFS, which just started up. Do have NBA DFS for like last week. However, I'm not making a video today. It's a 13-game main slate. It's a little bit bigger. I don't really have the time to fully research that I would like today with just everything else going on. But we got some XFL DFS. I'll be doing a stream for that probably like in an hour or so, honestly. Hour to like an hour and a half from now. I just got to get that one set up, kind of going through, breaking down that slate, talking a little bit of recap from last week and what we can take from that. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely be sure to check that out as well. Really soon we'll be talking some USFL DFS as well. That starts up, I believe, April 15th is the first game for that. So definitely a lot going on in the DFS world right now at this point in time. I'm going to throw up the banner for Prize Picks too. So if you're brand new to Prize Picks, use this promo code up on the screen. Get 100% first match deposit up to $100 when you first make your first deposit. Helps you out a little bit. Helps me out a little bit as well. I'll be trying to do more Prize Pick content, putting it up over on my Twitter at Coach Craig Sports. So definitely be sure you're following me over there as well. But with that being said, definitely do appreciate everybody taking the time out of their day to tune in to this live stream, this video for the MLB DFS Core Picks for FanDuel for the main slate for today, obviously. And it does mean a lot to me that you guys did take the time out of your day to tune in, watch this video. Definitely appreciate it and hope that each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.